from the Gospel according to Mark. From that place, he went off to the territory of Tyre and Sidon. He retired to a certain house and wanted no one to recognize him. However, he could not escape notice. Soon, a woman whose small daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him. She approached him and crouched at his feet. The woman, who was Greek, a Syro-Phoenician by birth, began to beg him to expel the demon from her daughter. Jesus said to her, "Let the children of the household satisfy themselves at table first. It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." "Please, Lord," she replied, "even the dogs under the table eat the family's leavings." Then Jesus said to her, "For such a reply, be off now. The demon has already left your daughter." And when she got home, she found the child lying in bed and the demon gone. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Personal exchanges can change us, but only if we are willing to remain open and to be challenged by the presence of the Spirit in others and in the world. We followers of Jesus sometimes need to be reminded that Jesus himself grew in wisdom, in age, and in grace. This short gospel demonstrates how he continued to grow and learn from those around him. That he was open to being transformed when met with the reality and the truth of daily life. Even the dogs under the table eat the family's leavings, for goodness sakes. When my daughter was 4, she sat on the floor in front of me as I brushed her hair. It was an intimate time when we talked. One day she asked me about my ministry studies, and I began to talk to her about God. I have no recollection about what I was telling her in reference to God, but I do know that I referred to God as He. She whipped her small head around, pulling away and looking up at me, and she said, "God isn't a he or she. God just is." I was forever changed. And not by Elizabeth Schussler Fiorenza or Sandra Schneiders or Elizabeth Johnson, all of whom I deeply admire and turn to for reference, but by a 4-year-old child and her gut-resonating theological teaching, by her deep knowing and her faith. The Syro-Phoenician woman got Jesus' attention. She challenged his belief system. In her brief theological reflection with him, she set in motion avenues to inclusivity and equality and change. And it didn't take much more than courage and hope and faith. So what gets your attention? Surely earthquakes and tsunamis and floods and natural disasters. We can't escape the impact of the human misery caused by those events. There's an earthquake in Japan and thousands of people are killed, cities are devastated. A tsunami in the Indian Ocean and the world is torn apart. An earthquake in Haiti and human misery is multiplied 1,000-fold. All terrifying as we hear the stories and see the video events. Nature has gotten our attention. And we respond with prayers and money, but it's far away, it's a natural disaster, and somehow we get on with our lives. But what stops us in our tracks, challenges us, and forever changes our lives. Maybe, like Jean Donovan, Maura Clark, Ida Ford, and Dorothy Kazel, who were murdered in El Salvador for their work with the poor, it is being in relationship with the oppressed. Maybe, like Father Roy Bourgeois, it's discovering the truth about the School of the Americas, located in Fort Benning, Georgia, which trains terrorists in torture techniques against their own. Maybe, like Sister Dorothy Stang, it's falling in love with the country and its people and joining them in their fight for the environment and their rights in Brazil and becoming a martyr with the Beatitudes in her hand. Maybe it's reading the testimony of the pedophile victims and knowing that our church has got to change and becoming an agent for that change. And maybe it's sitting at a parish council meeting discussing the very real possibility that the Eucharist will not be available to the faithful in the not-so-distant future because of the lack of ordained male clergy, and dreaming Future Church into being. What stops us in our tracks is most certainly justice issues, and injustice abounds. More children go to bed hungry at night in our own country than there are citizens in Canada. People are dying at this moment in Somalia because of a drought. There are 12 major wars going on in the world, and there are 20 low-intensity ongoing conflicts. Of major concern for us are environmental issues, the amount of tax dollars spent on nuclear weapons, genetically modified foods we all ingest without knowing. Federal tax dollars are being taken away from programs that benefit our most vulnerable, children, the poor, the elderly. The number of homeless continues to increase, and the list goes on. Closer to the very essence of our being in our own church, women's voices are not heard. Children are abused. Money is ill spent. Parishes are closed, and all are not welcome. So what are we to do? We are to be who we say we are, God's people. We need to have eyes that see and ears that hear. We need to listen for what challenges us. We must listen to the stories of the people whom we have little in common with, who cross the path of our comfortable lives. We need to read the newspaper on one hand, with the gospel in the other hand. Form a relationship with someone who is different. Be part of a community with like values. Join a justice group. Speak out against injustice. Stand in solidarity with women, with the poor, the disenfranchised, the immigrant, with children, with parishioners of closed parishes. Stand in vigil for the disappeared, for peace, for whatever moves your heart. And when we do this, we too will be transformed. And we will bring transformation to the world and to our church.